what your extra 15 hours are actually worth. Let's talk about time. The standard Australian full-time working week, according to the ABS, is 38 hours. The average professional, when you factor in a bit of unpaid overtime, lands somewhere between 40 and 42 hours. That's the norm. That's what most people are doing. Now, AITSL, the Australian Institute for Teaching and School Leadership, has done research on teacher workload. Their data puts the average full-time teacher at 55 hours per week. Secondary teachers and those in leadership roles, often more. 55 hours. That's a 15-hour gap between what teachers work and what the average Australian professional works. 15 hours a week, every week of the school term, working above the national average, most of it unpaid, most of it invisible, and most of it involving skills that in any other context would be billed at significant hourly rates. That's what we're going to talk about today. Where those hours actually go, and what each category is worth when you take it outside the school context. So first, what does a 55-hour week actually look like? AITSL's research breaks teacher time into several categories. The distribution shifts depending on your school level, your subject, your role, but the overall pattern is remarkably consistent. Contact hours, actual classroom time, direct teaching, sits at around 22 to 25 hours per week for full-time secondary teachers. That's the part people imagine when they think about teaching. Standing in front of a class, delivering content. That's roughly half the week. Then there's lesson planning and preparation, 8 to 10 hours per week. Writing sequences, sourcing materials, differentiating for students with different needs, designing assessments. This is the invisible work that makes the visible work possible. Assessment and marking adds another 6 to 8 hours per week during heavy periods. And for senior secondary teachers, that can spike significantly at exam time. This isn't just reading work and putting a grade on it. It's calibrating rubrics, moderating across a faculty, giving feedback, tracking patterns across a cohort. Administrative and compliance tasks account for 5 to 7 hours per week. Data entry, attendance records, reporting requirements, policy documentation, mandatory training, and an ever-growing load of digital administration through learning management systems. This category has been growing for a decade, and most teachers will tell you it's nowhere near slowing down. Communication takes 3 to 5 hours. Parent emails, phone calls, welfare referrals, coordination with support staff, interdepartmental meetings. This is the connective tissue of a school, and teachers are doing most of the connecting. And then there's pastoral care and emotional labor. 2 to 4 hours per week, conservatively. This is the hardest category to quantify and the most consistently underestimated. It's the conversation before class with a student who's clearly not okay. It's the referral you write after lunch. It's the check-in with a kid going through a family breakdown, or the mental health crisis you weren't trained for but handled anyway because you were the adult in the room. Here's what that adds up to. The contracted 38 to 40 hour week covers contact hours and a portion of planning. The additional 15 hours, the gap hours, are almost entirely in assessment, administration, communication, and pastoral care. The work that doesn't stop when the bell goes. Now let's talk about what that work is worth outside a school. Start with lesson design and curriculum development. In teaching, this is planning sequences, writing programs, mapping to curriculum standards, sourcing and creating materials, and differentiating for different learners. You do this every week. For some teachers, it's close to a daily task. Outside of school, this role has a name: instructional designer, or curriculum developer, or learning experience designer. The job is identical. You analyze what people need to know or be able to do. You design a sequence to get them there. You build or source materials, and you create some way of measuring whether it worked. The content domain is different. It might be corporate compliance instead of Year 10 science, but the design process is the same. What does this pay in Australia? Mid-career instructional designers earn between $85,000 and $120,000. Senior roles at large organizations or in specialized domains push $130,000 to $145,000. Freelance instructional designers working on contracts typically charge $750 to $1,400 a day. Think about that. If you spent 8 hours last week writing a unit of work, and you did, that's a full day's work. A freelancer would charge around $1,000 for that day. You did it as part of the invisible 15. The next category is assessment design and evaluation. In teaching, this is writing assessment tasks, building rubrics, moderating across a faculty, analyzing results data, reporting on progress, and using what you find to adjust what you teach next. This is what good teachers do constantly. It's embedded in the work. Outside of school, this is called program evaluation. It's a distinct, well-paid function in government, non-profit, and corporate settings. Organizations run programs, training programs, health initiatives, community services, and they need people who can measure whether those programs are working. They need people who understand how to design valid assessments, interpret results, and make evidence-based recommendations. Teachers understand all of this. They've been doing it for years. They just haven't been calling it evaluation. Australian salary range. Program evaluation consultants at mid-career level earn $95,000 to $130,000 in government and non-profit. Learning analytics and data roles in L&D settings sit around $90,000 to $120,000. Then there's facilitation and communication. In teaching, this is running a 90-minute learning session with 25 to 30 people of varying engagement, varying ability, and, let's be honest, varying interest in being there. You read the room. You adjust in real time. You manage disruption without losing momentum. You make abstract content accessible. You handle questions you didn't anticipate. You do this multiple times a day. Outside a school, this is called corporate facilitation. It's running workshops, leadership programs, and change management sessions for adult professionals. The room is easier. The pay is significantly higher. In-house corporate facilitation roles sit at $90,000 to $120,000. External facilitators, running workshops as contractors, charge $1,200 to $2,500 per day. Many experienced teachers who've transitioned find they can build a sustainable day rate practice within 12 to 18 months of leaving the classroom. The skill is there. It's been there the whole time. Next, administrative coordination and project management. In teaching, this is managing multiple competing deadlines, coordinating assessment schedules, tracking compliance requirements, running meetings or contributing to them, managing communications with parents, students, welfare teams, and leadership simultaneously. Teachers are functionally small project managers. Every curriculum unit is a project. It has a scope, a timeline, deliverables, stakeholders, and a quality measure. Teachers who move into L&D management, curriculum project roles, or operations roles in training organizations consistently report that these skills transferred more directly than they expected. They expected to feel like beginners. They didn't. L&D program coordinators and managers in Australia earn $85,000 to $115,000. Operations managers in mid-sized training organizations sit at $90,000 to $130,000. And finally, pastoral care and emotional labor. This is the category that surprises teachers most when they see it described this way. In teaching, it's supporting students through mental health difficulties, family breakdown, learning challenges, peer conflict, and crisis situations. It's writing referrals, maintaining well-being, check-ins, providing consistent ongoing support to young people who are struggling, often without training, often without backup, and almost always without recognition that this is skilled work. Because inside schools, this is so normalized it doesn't feel like a skill. It feels like caring. It feels like the job. But here's what's true. Outside schools, it absolutely is a skill. And organizations pay for it. Companies invest in employee well-being programs. They run mental health first aid initiatives. They employ HR business partners and well-being leads whose job is to do what teachers have been doing informally for years. The capacity to hold space for someone in distress, communicate difficult information with care, and maintain ongoing support relationships. That is a real, valued, market-priced capability. HR business partners and employee well-being roles at corporate organizations earn $90,000 to $130,000. Senior well-being leads and organizational health roles push higher. So here's the full picture. If you take the teaching week apart and map each component to its market equivalent, you are currently doing the work of an instructional designer, an evaluator, a corporate facilitator, a project coordinator, and a well-being professional, often in the same morning, paid on the teacher pay scale. Outside of school, these roles don't typically sit with one person. They're distributed across multiple positions at different salary levels. A corporate training manager might have an instructional designer on the team, a facilitator who comes in for delivery, a program coordinator managing the admin, and access to EAP services for the well-being piece. You are doing versions of all of those jobs compressed into a 55-hour week on a single pay packet. The 15 hours you're working above the Australian average are not free. You're paying them with your time, your health, and your long-term career capital. The question, and it's worth sitting with, is whether that exchange rate still makes sense for you. What teachers take to the market? Here's what the research and the lived experience of teachers who've transitioned consistently shows. It doesn't require acquiring entirely new skills. It requires translating the skills you already have into language the new sector recognizes. That's the consistent finding. The skills were there. The vocabulary was wrong. Once teachers understand how to describe curriculum design as instructional design, once they learn to frame classroom facilitation as workshop delivery and assessment creation as evaluation framework development, the market responds. The first role outside teaching typically pays at or slightly below current teaching salary. Within 2 to 3 years, most teachers who've made the transition report matching or exceeding what they earned. Within 5 years, many are significantly ahead, particularly those who move into management, senior consulting, or specialist roles. Here's what I want you to take from this. The 55-hour week, those extra 15 hours, is your portfolio. Every unit you've planned, every assessment you've designed, every parent conversation you've navigated carefully, every student you've supported through something difficult, those are case studies. They are evidence of skills that the market will pay for. You've been doing this work. You just haven't been calling it by the name the market uses. The skills are yours. The question is where you choose to use them. Join the Teach Yourself Out community. Link in bio.